this country. And that brings me to my second reason that I endorse Barack Obama. And that's a reason that's way closer to my heart. That is that for the first time in a very long time, we have a candidate that talks about uniting us instead of dividing us. We have a candidate that talks about how we can do things differently. We have a candidate who I think will not only talk about, but who will change the way we do business in Washington. Because I don't think it's enough just to change the party in the White House. Although after the last 8 years, I think we've got to change the way we do business in Washington, and we've got to change the way we run political campaigns in this country. And if you want to see the type of president Barack Obama will be, look at the type of campaign that he is running. He is not engaging in the politics of personal destruction. Just because somebody disagrees with him or is running against him doesn't mean he employs, the Tanya Harding, take them out of the knee strategy. It's been a while, hasn't it?
We remember.
But I think also, when he gets to Washington, he's the one candidate who's not beholden to anybody but us. He's the only candidate that doesn't take PAC money. He's the only candidate that doesn't take money from lobbyists. And right now, he's got almost 1.5 million individual contributors to his campaign. The average contribution is less than $100. So, when he gets there, he's going to bring that with him. He's going to bring that notion that he's not beholden to any of the special interests. He's not beholden to any of the people who normally control the way things work in Washington. And I think he's the most moral candidate we got. When I first met with Senator Obama, and we were talking about this campaign, one of the things that came up were his big strengths and big weaknesses, and he asked me what I thought they were. And I said, well, I think your biggest weakness is you're a U.S. Senator, and you live in Washington. But your biggest strength is you haven't been there very long. And that you still remember. And he does. It was 5 years ago when he and Michelle paid off their college loans. It was, same time he was worried about credit card debt and mortgage, worried about saving for retirement, saving for children's education, worried about the same things that we all worry about. And we need a president who will not only try to score, will not just try to score partisan political points, but will actually try to solve some things that we have going on in this country, some issues that we have going on in this country. To pick up on what Elwood said, we need to make sure that every child in America, regardless of where they grow up, regardless of who their parents are, regardless of what the circumstances of their birth, gets a great education. And that's from early childhood education on through elementary school and high school. We need to support our teachers better, and we need to pay them more. I've always thought we ought to pay teachers like we pay ball players. Because we give them more important stuff to do. We ought to make sure that anybody who wants to go to college can go to college. And that they can repay that college by service to America. They can repay it by teaching in places that need teachers. And I went to a high school in a town a lot smaller than Pendleton. And we didn't have any foreign languages taught there. We didn't have any science courses that required a lab taught there. And now you just can't do that. You've got to have a competitive education. Because we're competing. Pendleton's not competing against people in Washington, Idaho, or California. We're competing all over this world. We're competing against people from China, Indonesia. We compete against people from the Czech Republic. And that's who our children are going to have to compete with. We've got to make sure that everyone has the type of education that they can compete with that. And that's one of the things Barack Obama talks a lot about, and particularly in stay here and not have to go somewhere else to find a good job and to build a good life. We've got to make sure that everybody in this country has access to health insurance and high-quality health care, so that people don't use the emergency room as their family doctor. I'll tell you a real quick personal story. For a year, middle of 2006 till middle of 2007, I was head of a company in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Now, it's hard to get from Jackson, Mississippi to Philadelphia, and I was commuting. It's like this being said, even if you die and go to heaven from Mississippi, you have to go through Atlanta. And I had been through Atlanta way too long. And this company had hired me to help them get out of bankruptcy. And we got out of bankruptcy. It took about a year. We got out of bankruptcy. We paid everybody 100 cents on the dollar. We didn't lay anybody off. It was a big success. So I quit. I went home. I got a lot of reasons to go home. I got $3. I got a 17-year-old. I got a 16-year-old. I got a 7-year-old. And it was great going home, except when I quit my job, I lost my health insurance. And so I went out looking for health insurance. Well, there wasn't any problem covering the 17-year-old. There wasn't any problem covering the 7-year-old. But my 16-year-old has had asthma all her life. And we can't find insurance for her. Because it is a pre-existing condition. I don't know, call me crazy, but I thought one of the reasons you bought insurance was you knew you had something wrong. And that you might need some care at some point in the future. And we're paying COBRA now. It only lasts for 18 months. And it cost us $1,500 a month to cover my family under COBRA. Now, I have been very fortunate in my life. I can afford $1,500 a month, probably. It hurts. But nobody should. And no insurance company should be able to turn you down for a pre-existing condition.
Thank you. Yeah.
And the insurance ought to be portable. You ought to be able to move it when you change jobs, so that you don't make a decision of whether you change jobs or take a new job based on whether you've got insurance. And, you know, one of the things that Senator Obama says in his talks is that he doesn't think anybody doesn't have insurance because they don't want insurance. They don't have insurance because they can't afford insurance. And so his plan is to let people buy into the federal system that Congress uses. Or if you want to keep the private insurance that you have, that there's a lot more competition in there. It's estimated that the average family will save about $2,500 a year under this plan, making it affordable for most people. We've got to make sure that we get this economy going again through ending tax cuts for companies that take jobs overseas, to moving away from our big dependence on oil, and particularly foreign oil. I mean, I lived in Saudi Arabia for 2 years. It is frightening that we're sending the type of money we're sending over there. Because that money goes for several things. But one of the things it goes for is it comes back here and buys our debt, our government. So we don't have a whole lot of leverage against those folks that we may need at some point. And we have got to begin to move to different sources of energy, more renewable sources of energy. And we've got to become a lot more energy efficient, cars, trucks, and everything else that we do. And I think that Barack Obama is the person who can do that.